What's up, YouTubers? Today we're going to take a look at the Civivi Elementum button lock. Much anticipated, heretofore gone, pretty much sold out for now. They'll be back. Just as we ran out of regular Elementums in 2020, here in 2021 we ran out of these. They will come back again in plenty numbers, so fear not, just wait. This particular knife weighed in at 3.3 ounces. Again, comes in at 3.5 inch blade, so a fair bit larger half inch than the regular Elementum. And this one went for a price of 67 bucks about. I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons of this knife pretty much in the context of a Civivi Elementum. There's enough individual and just independent reviews of the Elementum button lock, but I'm assuming that if you've hit my channel, since it's really not very popular, you're going to basically have a chance to have seen an Elementum before, and you're going to be seeing it in that context, and I'm going to be delivering it in that context. So in terms of key notables between these blades, obviously the regular Elementum has a 3-inch blade versus a 3.5 inch, so there you have a big difference right there off the bat. And this particular one actually has a button lock, and button lock exclusively, versus previously the Elementum has just a flipper lock. So yeah, we're going to talk about that in a few different points on this one and why it doesn't have some other things, and specifically why I think this one does not have any other options in terms of that sort of thing. So I guess we can talk a little bit about that from the beginning. Is this particular knife is actually locked from the beginning. So it's actually locked in the closed position where the button punches down into a plunge, and you cannot open that up without releasing that button lock. And then likewise, when it's in the open position, it hits a plunge on the other side of that tang there. And so you'll notice that it's a dual lock in that sense. And they stated that was by design. I personally think it was probably just so that they could I won't say rush this, but they could get away with some of the precision necessary to accommodate a detented plunge lock. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead some of the comparables that we're really talking about button locks here. So a thumb stud one would be the Hoagie X03. This one comes in at I think 135 bucks, USA made. If you wanted a flipper, principally, there's the ProTech Malibu. These are also out at present and tough to get a hold of, but again, product is coming, they're filtering through, and many more will be made. ProTech wants to sell those as much as you want to buy those. So that would be a thumb stud and a flipper. And then, of course, because I am a fanboy of the Orion Knives Solaris, this one is both a thumb stud as well as a flipper. And, of course, all three work the same as the Elementum in terms of you can just release the button and just flip that thing open. So, yeah, this particular Orion Solaris is in the jade green. That's about 105 bucks after all out the door with the new scales. And then the ProTech was about 200 bucks for that one. So those would be options that you have in the button flipping world, at least ones that I have myself in my own collection. So let's get back to this one. So one thing, going back to the blade against the original. So this is the original, which they had called a stonewash, and I knew was not a stonewash. That was a bead blast. Not a bad job, but it's not a stonewash. This one, they did a beautiful job. This is a stonewash. A+ for that effort. I beat the heck out of this thing for the last 2 weeks through boxes, and you can even see kind of some dyes on there. That was after washing this off with alcohol, but this thing, that is a proper stonewash. So very, very kudos for that. It is, of course, a 3.5 inch blade. My preference would have been a 3.25 instead of the 3.5. But I also have a suspicion that they went with the longer blade because they don't have any other deployment method, that they needed enough radius, momentum, to swing that thing out with assurance. So that's my own personal guess. I don't know that, but it would seem to make sense. So this particular knife, the new one, button lock, has the full micarta scales. Beautiful. And again, I'm comparing it to the original, also in micarta scales, but you'll notice we have the cutout here for the lanyard space area, which is just basically a gap there. So massive kudos to Civivi for this particular execution, where they put a hidden lanyard pin behind the back spacer here, and that way we get nice, good looking scales. Plus they did go ahead and give you a left side tip up mount for the pocket clip. The original, not so. So really a lot of good things going on here. on this particular blade so far. The Micarta backspacer, I will say, on this particular one was just a little. You can see there, it's not really ground off perfectly there. So it's just they missed a few things on there. Maybe rushing to get this out the door. It's, you know, this is not a ray out knife, but it absolutely works for what it needs. It also has, just like the original, a nice hollow ground there, so very thin behind the edge, and this thing does slice very well. The blade stock, I think, was 0.11 versus 0.10 for the S35 VN version in Micarta. And the one other thing about this plunge lock that I didn't mention before is that it actually utilizes, you might be able to see this if I can get that on camera, but when you push that button, there's a piece of cutout from the liner right there. Instead of using a coiled spring on the other side of the button, as most of them do, this was actually kind of creative, and it utilizes a piece of the liner on the clip side, and actually just they spring that out, and that provides the tension on there. So kind of clever. I think it also probably saved them some money as well. This has the better rounded clip than the original Elementum. You're going to notice that right here, this one is nice and round. The original one is a little bit more squared there. That one, I think they introduced, at least first one I saw was, I think, on the pintail here. It might have also been on the Ortis that they rounded that off as well. So definitely an improvement on the clip. So they really took a lot of cues and improved a lot of things and some of the complaints that were out there. So very good on that. Love the full scales, already talked about that, and I actually do prefer the 14C28N steel to their D2 in their standard version. Of course, I actually, for this particular rendition of the original Elementum, this is the S35 VN, I do prefer this, and I was able to get a pretty solid mirror polish on this knife. You know, and so I'd say the blade steel on that original, for me, again, that particular one, I should say, was about $80 versus this one's 67, 68 bucks. So you're paying a little bit more, but that steel actually held a great edge. I started to wear this down after a couple weeks of really burning through a lot of boxes, the new Elementum button lock. So, you know, for my money, I'll take it over the D2 certainly for sharpenability, and also it's much more stainless, tough. It's nice, tough, not brittle. It is a very good, well-rounded steel. So on the steel side, I really do like this one. Certainly better than the D2 and that sort of stuff. So I think they really hit it positive on a lot of things on this one. Like I said, I think a couple things that they maybe missed was that they did not, in fact, I guess we'll talk about it now, why there are no more deployment methods is it does take a great deal of precision to achieve an excellent detent on a plunge lock. And I think instead of trying to basically, the way a plunge lock works is you basically have a channel, and then it's usually opened up a bit, and then your plunge comes in there like this. And you have to just basically get a good balance on that one. It is very tough to do. I think the masters of it, absolutely, the master winners in the current market is going to be the ProTech. It's just absolutely perfect. But the Solaris and the Hogue hit it really well, and I think this just allowed them to get out there with a button lock without having to worry about a detent. And in the absence of that, because I haven't heard any reason why they went specifically with that in the locking position. I have watched some Civivi videos on that, but I'm not entirely sure. I think it was because it's much easier just to basically make a straight grind down into that tang there to lock it in the closed position. You know, I guess there are some advantages not having to have a flipper. It fits in your pocket well. This particular blade obviously is going to, or whole knife is going to sit in the pocket much bigger if you take a look at that. You know, so in terms of thickness, not so much. It's not a whole lot, but it is a lot longer. You know, for me, I really would have loved, I guess overall, I'd say I'll probably stick with the original. When I recommend to people the original Elementum, there's just a couple things they need to nail on this. I mean, going back to something I missed, the weight difference. This particular knife, the new one, Elementum button lock, was 3.3 ounces as I weighed, and the original in the Micarta is 2.7 or 2.6 ounces. So not a great big difference to me. That doesn't really make much of a difference. But I think a 3.25 inch blade, work on that detent and actually tuning that with precision so that they can put another method, whether it be thumb studs or a flipper might make more sense in the context of this. And I think this would basically make this one a standard in terms of the plunge locks for EDC carry. So, you know, I'm going to probably stick with primary carry on this one in terms of an Elementum versus this button lock. But the button lock does have its uses, and I think it's still a good value. If I didn't mention it, I might have forgot to mention it before, but this hidden lanyard hole, it's pretty snug with paracord 550. This is a little bit thick. I think really it's designed maybe for 325, the thinner paracord, if you're going to tie some lanyard on there. I did run it with it, and it did okay, but it's just still really stiff in there after a couple weeks. So if I forgot to mention that, sorry about that. You know, just trying to rip through a whole lot of stuff. On the whole, is it a good knife? Is it a you know, button lock worth carrying? It is. It is. You know, is it top of the line? It is not. Yeah, this is probably somewhere in the bottom range, but as a first introduction, it is very useful, and I think there's definitely, they left themselves some room to grow for this one. Hope you did enjoy this. If you did, hit like and subscribe, and have a great day. Take care now.